What's up, guys? It's Pelican here, back with another video. So who do I have here with me today?
I'm Brendan Outlaw.
Yo, Outlaw, what did you do today?
So played Abyss Actors, made top cut, top four. It's actually kind of funny because my friends and I have a joke with this deck where if you play this deck, you get prize support.
Alright, with Abyss Actors, that's wild.
Yeah.
What? Alright, well, show us the deck. Let's see what's going on.
Sure, yeah. So I run 3 traps in the main deck. Imperm, pretty staple, great card, very versatile.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's the only traps going into spells. Triple Pot of Extravagance. You have a lot of extra deck space in this that you don't use. Extravagance is perfect for it. This is something that a lot of people don't do with this deck. I run 3 of the field spell.
Really? What does the field spell do?
So the field spell, it's a searcher card, so it's really good for baiting Ash, but its main effect is it turns the opponent's first monster effect each turn into destroy one set spell or trap card your opponent controls, which means that it's not only changing your opponent's first effect, which can be very disruptive, but it ends up helping you because you want your spells and traps to be popped.
Okay, alright.
Next up, I run Abyss Tainment at 2, Abyss Script Abyss Tainment. This is the kind of deck that you can run the Abyss Scripts at any ratio. I like Abyss Script at 2, the Abyss Tainment one, because I like seeing it in my hand, but I also want to be able to search it if I can. Also, there's a combo with this card, so being able to get rid of it and still have a copy is really good. It's also easy to side out to put at 1. Next up is Rise of the Abyss King. This card is insane. This card is probably the best card in the deck. It pops face-up cards your opponent controls equal to the number of attack position monsters you control. So if you're playing against Virtual World, they've got VFD and Choo-Choo and whatnot, you can still make monsters on board and clear their board using this card.
Okay, that card's crazy.
Yeah,
what the heck? And it's searchable?
And it's searchable. Yeah, it's searchable. You can set it. You can get it from graves. There's a lot of ways to get to it. And if you control a level 7 or higher Abyss Actor, your opponent can't respond.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a pop however many your opponent can't respond that you can recycle. Next up is Abyss Script Opening Ceremony. This one's really good if you're going first, especially. It's also really good for sort of preserving the game. It helps you gain 500 life points for each Abyss Actor you control. Really good in time, like insane in time. I've won so many games with this card in time. But if your opponent pops it while it's set, you draw till you have 5 cards in hand.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so if your opponent tells you to go first, you just make the field spell, you get this set, your opponent has to pop this, you draw 5, maybe see some hand traps. Worst case, you're just starting the next turn with a full hand.
Okay.
Next up is Abyss Script Morantic Terror. I run this at 1. This is one of the Abyss Scripts that would be considered bad. I think it's really good because it helps you dodge hand traps. It returns one Abyss Actor monster from the field to the hand. It summons one from extra deck, so it helps with resource management, and it helps protect from, hand traps and whatnot. It also, you can use it on your opponent's turn to dodge being destroyed and, get something useful out of the extra deck.
Okay.
Next up is Abyss Prop Wild Wagon. This is another card that people might not run in this deck. I love it. So the first thing is that your Abyss Actors have to be destroyed by battle twice, like all of them. But the most important effect is that you can target one of your Abyss Actors, and if it resolves, your opponent can't target it with card effects until the end of their turn. So you use this on the Link before you activate the Link's effect. They either have to shotgun and negate on the Link's monster's effect, like Imperm or the Dogmatica one, in which case you haven't used the Link's effect yet, and you can make another one and use it anyway, or your Link is protected. And then if this card's popped while set, it shuffles all cards on your opponent's field to the hand, so it outs trouble cards like Dragoons and whatnot.
Okay.
Terraforming at 1, just to help me see the field spell. I love the field spell, really good for resources and, helping take control of the game. And then Feather Duster at 1, just because you don't care about your opponent's monsters for the most part. Like, even VFD is not that big of a deal, but your opponent's back row is probably going to be the most disruptive, so Harpy's Feather Duster helps get rid of that problem. Next up, we're going into monsters with hand traps. I'm starting with, 3 Ash. Ash is probably the best hand trap this format. It's just really good, and you can afford to run it. Next up is, 3 Gamma and Driver.
Of course.
Also really good, especially against the VFD combo. It helps a lot with, going into your extra deck because you have so much extra deck space. I just run a bunch of level 8 synchros for this card, just, in case I resolve it. Next up, we're getting into the Abyss Actors themselves. We got Abyss Actor Evil Heal. Another card people don't like. I love it because it's 3K. It beats over cards like VFD and whatnot, the big beaters of the deck. And if you destroy an opponent's monster by battle, it sets an Abyss Script from grave, so it's good recursion for free. Okay. Next up is Superstar. I'm running it at 2. This is probably the best boss monster in the deck. It lets you set an Abyss Script from deck, so it's a really good way to get to your resources. And then in scale, you contribute a monster to get your Abyss Script back, so it helps with getting resources there as well. Next up is 3 Melomadonna. This is the engine card of the deck. This lets you search any of the monsters. So you don't necessarily need to see Madonna to win games, but you really want to see Madonna to win games. It lets you search, and if it's in the monster zone, it lets you summon from deck.
To summon from deck.
Yeah, let's you summon a level 4 from deck, but it gets bounced back to hand at the end of the turn. Doesn't matter, you just tribute it with one of your cards that gives you resources for tributing. Or you let it go back to your hand and you have it for next turn. Next up is Leading Lady. This is a card that I might be taking out at some point. I personally like it in case I go up against Dragoons, but its full purpose is just to be a level 4 normal summon to get to the link, or to weaken my opponent's monsters, because it has 2 different effects as a scale and a monster involving battle damage and reducing my opponent's attack based upon that. And I think one of them is non-targeting, so it helps me get rid of Dragoons. Next up is 3 Sassy Rookie. I love this card. It's really good for surviving. It's also good in scale to protect your board. So if you just want to keep your board alive, put it in scale. If it dies in scale, it pops an opponent's monster. If it's on board, you have to destroy it twice. If it dies, you summon from deck. So it's good. It's good survivability. Next up is Wild Hope. This card's really good for a couple of reasons. The first reason is that it makes your other scale a scale 9. So as long as you have one of these in your scale, anything else in the deck becomes a viable scale to use, which is insane. Like this card makes it doesn't matter what your other scale is, it's just all of a sudden playable. So I love this card. And if this is destroyed, you get to search anything, like any Abyss Actor card. It says card, which is great. So I'm actually thinking about doing a combo with this card and with Luster Pendulum, where you pop this in scale, search, add one of these to hand, activate it anyway, Link summons Luster, and then you pop off. But this card's really good. Next up is Curtain Raiser. This is my favorite card in the deck. I run it at 3.
Yeah, of course. 3. Card's super free.
A lot of people don't actually like it at 3. I've actually met some Abyss Actor players who like it at 1 at most. I love it because it helps me recur resources. Like it, a lot of people don't know, the main effect, which is summon from scale. Its on-field effect is that I can dump an Abyss script from deck to add it from extra deck to hand. So Abyss Actors that I've already used, or things that I might want to see in my hand later on, I can just use these to get back into my hand for more resources for next turn, or to be able to Pendulum Summon more because of the the lockout from the new format of links and whatnot. So it's really good. I love that card. Next up is 2 Comic Relief. This card is really good this format. I seriously underrated this. So Comic Relief does 2 things. In scale, you target one of your Abyss Actor monsters, and you swap control with it and one of your opponent's monsters. So this helps me steal my opponent's VFD.
What? Yeah. How does you explain?
So in scale, right? Let's say it doesn't matter which Abyss Actor. I could summon another one. Doesn't matter. Just anything else. Comic Relief, target VFD, swap control. I now gain VFD. And let's say this is Comic Relief on my opponent's field that I've given them. Each, the person who controls its standby phase, it changes possession. And if this card ever changes possession, its first effect upon doing that is that it pops 1 set Abyss Script your opponent, Abyss Script that your opponent controls.
Yeah.
So let's say I have Abyss Tainment set. So I set Abyss Tainment, have 2 Comic Relief in hand, scale 1, normal summon 1, or I have a Madonna, search Comic Relief, scale 1, summon 1. Effect, target VFD, and this, change control. VFD's now on my board. Because this is my opponent's monster, here, let me move it into view. Because this is my opponent's monster, it can resolve its effect to pop 1 set. Popping Abyss Tainment's effect, when my opponent pops it, I can summon any number of Abyss Actors from deck. Which means I will be going from 1 monster to a VFD and 4 Abyss Actor boss monsters. So I will be able to stop my opponent from playing because I have VFD, and on my turn, swing for game. So that's the combo with this, is that you use a Comic Relief, have a Comic Relief, take one of your opponent's monsters and give it to them, and then use this to pop Abyss Tainment to summon 5, or pop Rise to search any 2, or Opening Ceremony to draw 5. It's a really strong combo. It's just you need 2 Comic Reliefs to do it. And then last up is extras. Here, let me turn it this way. Extras. So this card's a 1-card combo starter. It's also really good against VFD as well. This does something. It does pretty similar to what Curtain Raiser does, where if my opponent does control a monster and I don't, or it doesn't. I don't even need to not. It's just if my opponent controls a monster and it's in scale, I can just summon it. So you do this. So you do Curtain Raiser first, then this. Activate Rise. Pop 2 cards to get rid of the VFD and the choo-choos. Great. But you can tribute this. You can tribute this card to activate to place a scale from deck, and that's really important because if you're under anti-spell, you can normal summon this, tribute, place Madonna, search, and then get rid of anti-spell with Rise or something.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so it's a really good card. This is a 1-card combo starter, but personally, I love this deck a lot. I play it a lot like how I used to play Sky Striker, where it's minimal board presence on if I can, and then gathering resources as much as possible in my opening hand. That way, on my next turn, I have everything I need to counter my opponent. Most people play this deck like an OTK deck or an aggro deck. I don't like playing it like that. I love playing this like a resource deck. It's a toolbox. It's got one card for any situation. Like I went through the list, you've seen everything. Each card does something different, and each card does like 2 or 3 things, and it's very niche. But I can out any deck with this deck because I have at least one card that does it, and I have so many different ways to get to it. So yeah, I love it for that. Next up, we'll go into the extra deck. Sorry, I forgot to put the extra deck in order. But this is the only card that really matters, is 3 of the Hyper Director.
So what does he do?
Yeah, so he targets a scale, does not have to be an Abyss Actor, which is why Luster Pendulum would work in the deck. Summons it, and then replaces it with a scale from deck. So they can't dash it. It gets you literally anything in the deck. It's really great. He's a really good engine card. You don't need this card to win games. I actually went X4 at a regional before this deck came out, like before this card came out with this deck. I would have gone X3, but I already had my invite. I played against a Thunder Dragon player, and I just said, here, you can have the invite. So I could have topped with this deck without the link, but I just didn't. Next up is I run double Entis. Just in case I go up against Dogmatica and somebody uses Maximus, I can just dump double Entis. And,
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, pop 2. That's free. And then Super Poly targets. These also aren't staying. Super Poly is not that great this format, so I'm just not going to put them there. I'm probably going to replace them with like some level 6 synchros like Horus or Coral Dragon. Stuff that's pretty good. Horus is going to be my favorite because it's you synchro with Pendulum, so you can negate one and steal one. And then the rest is just level 8 synchros. So Scarlight, obvious level 8 synchro, really good for blowing up boards and winning in time. I run the Chaos Ruler because he's good at getting resources out of deck, and he's really big. Stardust Dragon, this is one of my favorite techs. If you play against like Eldritch, or you play against Virtual World and you've gammaed their VFD, you can make Stardust. They can't use Choo Choo because if they try, you just Stardust to negate, and they don't even get their resources back, and it's destroyed. I also run Stardust Spark in case you're playing against Virtual World and they have the Synchro on board that sends stuff like that gets banished instead. This will just protect whatever, so Choo Choo's no longer relevant. Like it won't be able to destroy anything, and this will just protect it. But otherwise, I'd make Stardust. I have Beals in case they do resolve VFD. So let's say they have 2 VFD, chain 1 called Dark, I Gamma, chain 2 they call Dark again because I'm playing a Dark deck. When Gamma hits board, it's going to be Dark. So I'm just, okay, I'll just make Beals, which can't be destroyed by battle or card effect. And it has 3k, and if they do any battle damage to me, he just gets stronger. So I'm not actually sure how Virtual World outs this card except with their continuous spell. But even then, he's bigger than anything that they, like as big as anything that they summon, other than like Zeus. So he's really good. Omega, in case, you Gamma going first, good for everything Omega's good for. And then I actually used this today, which was interesting, Crimson Blader. This was the one that I was thinking about taking out. I was actually thinking about taking this out because I'm like, I'm never going to make this. But I played against Virtual World today, and I gammed him, and I made Crimson Blader. And I saw his board. He had, 3 monsters on it. None of them were like that big of a deal. And then he had, VFD with no material. It was just still there. It had, been there for a turn. So I just summoned Crimson Blader, swung over one of his defense position monsters, and he just couldn't play next turn. Like, he could only summon the level 3s. He couldn't synchro into anything. So that was pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, next up for the side deck, I'm running 3-dimensional Barrier. This card's really good this format. You know why. Every deck synchros or XYZs pretty much. Anything that's good at synchros or XYZs. And, you just don't set it in against, like, Dogmatic or whatever. Mind Drain. This card is insane. I played against Aaron, like you. I played against you today, and I activated this card game 2, and you just started scooping stuff up with the game 3.
I'm not going to waste my time against that card and against my whole hand.
Mind Drain is insane this format. It's really good against hand traps and against Evenly Match, which Evenly Match is probably the biggest weakness of this deck. Nothing really stops this deck other than Evenly Match, so Mind Drain stops that. And then Super Poly, gonna be taking these out because I don't want Super Poly targets. I can't really use it. This will be replaced with Hop Ear Squadron, which is a level 2 tuner that summons from hand on your opponent's turn and synchros, so that can make Horus and whatnot level 6. So yeah, this gives me some synchro plays on my opponent's turn, some disruptors. 3 Hey Trunade. Like I said, your opponent's back row is probably gonna be your biggest nightmare. So if you're playing against Eldritch, Hey Trunade, what are they gonna do?
Yeah.
So this card's a really interesting tech. People never expect it, and you don't want to be sending your opponent's stuff to grave because a lot of the time their stuff in grave helps them. So just returning it to hand forces them to have to wait another turn to use it, or to shotgun it, and then Nibiru, because Nibiru.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the deck. That's what I got for you.
Yeah. Any shout-outs?
Oh yeah, well, I want to shout out Team Yu-Gi Ohio, which I'm a shirt. We're the Ohio State Yu-Gi-Oh team. I want to shout out you, Aaron. Like, dude, you're awesome. Thanks for doing this for me.
Thank
It
you.
feels really good to get some recognition for this. And then I want to give a massive shout out to my friend Trey. He helped me the most, like, with building this deck, playtesting with it. He's actually thinking about building the deck too, the way that I build it, because he's seen me play it and whatnot. So yeah, Trey, love you, bud. Everybody else, love you guys. Thank you.
All right. Well, yeah. Take it easy.
You too.